Welcome to Three Principles Conversations with Christian McNeill, a series of conversations with Three Principles practitioners exploring a new explanation of how humans work. Insight into this understanding can help transform quality of life, relationships, and state of mind.
Hello and welcome everybody to the latest edition of Three Principles Conversations with me, Christian McNeill. And today I am absolutely delighted to be joined by Karen Dunbar, comedian, actress, national treasure, and my very good friend, my very dear friend. Hi, thank you so much for coming today, Karen. And it's a bit of a departure because most of my conversations are with guests who are Three Principles practitioners in one way or another. And obviously you're not. You have all those other strings to your bow and more besides. But it occurred to me recently that you are probably the person in my life that I most discuss a lot of these ideas with. And we're not necessarily putting it under that banner, but we have, some fascinating, delightful, deep philosophical conversations, and it just occurred to me that it might be, a nice conversation for our listeners to sort of almost listen in on some of what we talk about on a regular basis. So, thank you for being here.
Likewise.
And maybe I could kind of kick off by asking, what, if anything, have you found interesting or curious or even helpful about anything that you've picked up about the Three Principles?
Well, for a start, any of the conversations we've had, I've always been really intrigued by the Three Principles. But what's even more interesting is the more I try to find out about them, the less I can kind of grasp it. And that is the truth. And I don't know how, there's quite a few times I've said, tell me again what the Three Principles are, and and you articulate it very well, and then ask more and you expound on that, and then I get lost in it, and I'm like, I've lost it now. It's a bit like asking Chandler what his job was in Friends, and I'm like, right, I've got it, it's a transponder, but what the feeling that I get from our conversations, and sometimes I think, one of those ones that's better felt than told, I come away with a feeling of authenticity, obviously from yourself, just with the relationship that we've got, but also from what it is that the Three Principles give you. And that always interests me. That always hooks me with somebody. It doesn't matter what it is that they do. If I feel that there's an authenticness and almost a kind of, don't want to get too sycophantic, but a purity about what it is that they are talking about, with no agenda, then that's attractive.
Oh, lovely. And actually, I think you're right. I can't remember what you said. It's more about the feeling than the explanation. That isn't what you said, but something like that. And it occurs to me that's true. And it's honestly not a cop out. And I think it's like, if you were to try and define love, you could come up with all sorts of experiences and ideas and concepts that are not untrue, but they don't really give you a sense of what love is. And yet love is very important to everybody. And I don't just mean romantic love, love of all kinds. And so there's something, I think the Three Principles are working at that level, as it were, or they are truths about human experience, but they're not primarily intellectual truths. I mean, you can put explanations on it and you can articulate it, but that's not primarily what it's about. So that's really that's really helpful, Karen. I'm wondering, if you're comfortable with doing this, how would you, could you pan back a bit? I mean, I know a lot of your life is in the public eye. You're and at the moment you're all over the place. You've got a lot going on, and you speak very openly about your experience in your shows. But how did you come to be interested in things philosophical, things spiritual, things psychological? How, insofar as you want to go into that?
Yeah, gladly. As a kid, I had a great curiosity, and also I had some really weird stuff going on in my head as a kid. And how do I explain it? So one of the things I remember, I'm laughing because I don't even know, I have got nothing to tell you underneath this other than what the experience was, what the incident was. to try and explain what I was like as a wee kid. My mum was in the kitchen, and it was a very like lower working class kitchen, and the tatties were getting peeled, and the twin tub was on the go, and the steam was condensation running down the single pane, windows. And I'm about 4-year-old, 5-year-old, and she's flying about the place, and I'm distressed, and I say, "Mum," and she's peeling tatties, and she looks, goes, "What is it?" And I said, "It's too big." And she went, "Ah." I said, it's too big. She went, "What's too big?" I said, "I don't know." And she's like, away you go and tidy your room. Something like that. And I was trying to explain to her some kind of existential angst that I was having as a tiny kid, that I think I had realised. I don't even want it's not just as sort of scientific as spatial awareness. There's something else that I couldn't contain, explain, and I was disturbed, and I was trying to, because I couldn't articulate it anymore. I can't articulate it anymore today. And then I had another sensation at that same time, that it was too wee. I didn't bother taking that to my mother. I just let her peel the tatties. But it was, I cannot explain that. All I can say is that it was something other than the normal day-to-day experience. Playing on a bike and all that kind of stuff. So there was a curiosity in me. There was and I don't want to sound, if it sounds arrogant, it'll just need to, but a knowing. And I guess maybe most kids have that, maybe we grow out of that as we get taught how to be in the world and what's right and wrong in inverted commas, and what to think about and what not to think about. But that was always in me. One of my sisters was very into sort of new age spirituality and was always introducing me to different things. Buddhism, Hare Krishnas. At one point, she enrolled me in the White Eagle Lodge, which was an indigenous American Indian. Look at me try to stumble over the words of how to try to get it right there. You can edit it
still get cancelled.
And at one point, I went to Sunday school off my own back. How many weeks were going to Sunday school because there's nothing else to do? I was bored and lonely on a Sunday, and so I went to Sunday school on my own, and turned up as a kid there. And there was a thing called like the Tuesday Club and the Gospel Hall, and they kind of went round and told the kids, "Come and listen to stories about Jesus, and we'll give you a Mars bar." I was right in the door with that for a Mars bar, and I think I went for company. I was looking for connection. And at that point, the connection would have been with other people. But actually, as always, it always starts within myself. I certainly wasn't looking for spirituality, but I was curious and I was lonely. And I think those two elements can make for a good way forward, almost a good drive.
The ultimate conditions for becoming a seeker.
I suppose, loneliness and that. Why? Yeah, I still enjoy that, but I've got to watch I don't overindulge myself sometimes, and I disappear up my own backside with the whys. But sometimes I enjoy. But why? Why is that happening? Why am I feeling that? I don't know if maybe it just I'd make up stories and say, that's why, and then that satisfies my curiosity. But the why is a driver.
Yeah, interesting. In some ways, I had when you were talking about Sunday school, I was like the opposite. I was sent to Sunday school. My parents were not religious. I mean, my father was agnostic, like atheist, despite my name. But we kind of sent, I think, to get us out of the house. But I quickly cottoned on to you could just not go, take the collection and spend on sweets. And I really had a very sort of spiritual life, I think, until I, ran into trouble with drink, which is part of my history. And, and what was suggested to me at that time is that you need to find an answer within yourself. You need to find a spiritual solution. And I somehow knew that was true. I mean, it was kind of both anathema to me, but also I knew there was some truth in that. And I spent many years kind of seeking, but not really finding anything that was particularly comforting. I was very, very willing, but I wasn't able to find anything that I could fully believe in and embrace, or any of that. And then I did a lot of exploring. I was very curious. I was very much a seeker, very driven to do that. And I trained in lots of sort of modalities until I stumbled across the 3 principles. And immediately a series of insights occurred that gave me some of that sense of, oh, this is what I've been looking for. This kind of makes sense. And I realized that what was being pointed to were actual spiritual truths that I mean, I hate the word truth because it's, you know, it's so grandiose but they were spiritual facts, if I put it that way, that apply to everybody at all times, and they're not attached to any religion. There's no requirement to be, you know, it's not that. But the fact that I have come to see that everybody already has everything they need within them, but mostly, certainly in our culture, I don't know about, say, Eastern cultures, most people are not that aware of it. They've just got little glimpses of it here and there. And you know that, but it's just become increasingly clear to me that that's the case, and that you know, I think that, you know, that my work for myself and you know, and what I offer to others is, you know, how to awaken to that a bit more and really tune into what's already there. And when I say spiritual, it's nothing woo woo, you know, it's actually quite ordinary, but it's also extraordinary when you get a kind of begin to get a sense of just how much is on offer. Unlimited creativity, unlimited resourcefulness, unlimited resilience, unlimited capacity for connection. You know, it just goes on and on and on. And the more that I live in kind of in connection with that, you know, aligned with that, the easier life is. And it's not to knock the intellectual mind, the you know, the academic and all that. Though that's part of our, you know, of what's available to us. But I lived as if that was all. You know, it was all about that the intellect or the ego. So it was an extraordinary, it was one of those huge pivotal experiences to run across these principles for me. And that's partly, I think, what's, you know, motivated me to do the work I've done since, you know, a few years after that happened. It was something like my whole life changed around me. And that's what this podcast is part of. And I'm, you know, there's nothing more interesting for me today, nothing I'm more kind of jazzed about than having a conversation around it with people who are interested. And I don't mean, I hope, me lecturing them, but you know, that it literally is a conversation and learning about other people and their experience and how they see things and learning from them as well. Yeah.
And I can relate to a lot of that, Christian. And I think as an unconscious seeker, and then becoming a kind of realizing that I was seeking, so I didn't decide to become a seeker. I was seeking and then realized I was one.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you know, when you're saying the truth as well, I would have said then I'm looking for the truth, but actually what I was looking for was to reconnect with, and this can't help but sound a bit woo-woo, and I'll just have to, probably my essence,
Mm-hmm.
something that I feel that I had lost as a kid. You know, I had information, I had intuition, and then when I tried to act on that intuition, I was told that that was wrong. And so I believed at that point then that my intuition was wrong. So I stopped trusting that. And so I was actually looking to get back to that, you know, looking back for something that had already been there. It was just as you'd said there. I didn't really know that's what it was. And the only way that I knew, especially in a kind of the commodification of spirituality, was in the self-help section of Waterstones. Do you know what I mean? Start there, amongst other things. And I went down quite a lot of different paths with not really knowing what I was looking for, but finding it, you know, I knew that that's what it was to get back to what I knew already. It's a bit like that, you know, Paulo Coelho book, The Alchemist, where the wee poor shepherd boy goes and dreams of treasure and goes searching for it, and it's, you know, and he ends up back in the place that he had the dream in, which is the treasure is buried underneath them all the time. And as you say, these are sort of universal stories, tales of the facts that everything you've got you need. It is my forgetting of that causes me the most pain.
Yeah.
Is that I forget that is, I'll just say it, the truth.
Yeah.
That's the truth, is that I've got what I need.
Mm-hmm.
But fortunately, it takes me less time to get back to that truth now. And with people like yourself in my life, I'm reminded of that a lot of the time. Which is, it's not just good or nice or useful, it's vital for my sort of holistic well-being, is to have that support network. And again, that's always sounds a wee bit sort of corporate or something new. Support network, what does that mean? But it's just, I don't again want to say good people as if other people are bad, but just reminders of how to get back to myself. That's the easiest way to put it.
Yeah. I love that emphasis on that, getting back to yourself, because sometimes when people come across this work, they accuse it of being kind of cultish or something like that. And to my mind, it's almost the opposite of that, because it's very much saying, no, you have your answers. I don't have your answers. You have your answers to whoever, and I have my answers. It's not in some guru or teacher, and really, I don't think we can ever actually become disconnected, but it's really allowing the blocks that prevented us trusting ourselves to dissolve, and we have this amazing capacity for fresh thinking, for wisdom, for insight. I absolutely know that today, that a problem. I've got a thing going on at the moment, and it's to do with something to deal with the NHS, and it's an absolute joke, actually. But it's not solved. It's not clear what my next step is, if any. But I can sit here in comfort with that unresolved issue, because I know it will become clear. I know the next step will become clear and will become clear. And even if I do something stupid or isn't helpful, then I'll get a fresh insight, and I'll be back online. And that's an amazingly comforting thing for someone like me, who used to think I have to have all the answers now. I cannot live with doubt or uncertainty. And one false move and you're dead, and it's none of that applies today. So, there's a sense of kind of, even though things happen in my life and not everything goes the way I want it to go, there's also a sense of sort of living without problems, in the sense of problems that are eating away at you day and night, that which I have experienced in the past,
and very similar. And with an issue that I have, I'm saying an issue I've got going on, it's actually not an issue, but it became an issue in my head. And a strange, that bit of me that was like, that wee brain that was going, it's too big. The observer could see that my head is, harboured by language sometimes, but so part of me could see that part of me was making it an issue. I could only watch it. And it was almost like it had wound up so much. I just had to be patient and watch it unwind and remind myself. And another sort of go-to path to sanity for me is the now. What is happening right now? Bring your head to where your backside is. Because so much of what the problem was what was going to happen in not to the now.
Exactly.
And there's got to be a certain level of that. If I want to go to Mallorca tomorrow, I can't just turn up at Glasgow Airport and say, can I have just got on the plane, thanks. I'll need to have a wee think about how I'm getting there tomorrow. But most of that's a bit of planning in the now.
Well, I think that, yeah. I think the activity of planning can be a really enjoyable, fun thing to do right now. But I think the difference between that and what you're describing is when we're kind of emotionally living out horror fantasies, which are often the past worst case projected onto the future fantasy and elaborated by that. I've got to think about this to make me feel, to stop it happening, or and it just becomes this mushroom of negativity. But we continue to do it for so long as some part of us thinks it's useful. And I would say that 100% of our pain is really coming from what's not happening here now. And I know that's radical, but that I think we're built for what we're facing, and and of course there can be discomfort and you know, all sorts of different emotions, but the real pain, the intolerable pain, is always coming from something that's not happening here now. Comparison with others. Why haven't I got? Why did I? You know, all of that mishmash that just quick, and it can mushroom to nuclear levels in a nanosecond.
And I watched that the other day, and oh man, it was a tidal wave. It was just swept me. And I don't know how accurate it is to say I just had to watch until it unswept me. I'm no biochemist, but I imagine I'd had whatever cortisol and adrenaline was flying about me because I had a splitting headache. Do you know, I was agitated, and I had to wait. It was like I had to wait till my system calmed down and try and do as much as I could to help that. Or do you feel that you can just switch that straight away?
I don't think I can switch it off as like an act of will, because I don't think that return to sanity, let's just call it sanity, meaning good health, you know, is a tool that the ego can switch on and off. But I think it can happen in a nanosecond. And I bet it's happened to you. And I'll give you one example of when it happened to me. I had to go and I was going to be to a meeting, a group of people, and I was in a complete tiz over some real insanity in my own mind. I'd made up a big fantasy about someone that I thought, you know, was going to ask me out, and he didn't. And you know, the level of distress about this not having happened, you know, it was. I mean, it's embarrassing. This is some decades ago, I may say. And anyway, but you know, I was just distraught, and I was going to this meeting, so I went in there, and they said, "Oh, can you take the meeting?" You know, and instantly it just went instantly. And now that was not me. It was not my effort. It wasn't me being noble. It just went. And because today, when I look back on it, what I think happens there is that, you know, me presenting in that meeting was more important in my psyche than continuing to nurture the pain and rejection fantasy. You know, it's not that that's a guarantee, because that's the, you know, the art of this, you know, this understanding. It's not about you get these tools and you just pull them out and you think positively. It's nothing to do with that. It's much more subtle. But the other side of that is over time, and you know, as you continue looking in that direction, we just spend a lot less time creating pain for ourselves. It's what I've noticed for me and the people I work with. You know?
Yeah, my head running like an empty train was the first time I've had that in a long time. And that in itself reminded me that I used to live like that constantly. Like fair was a wee babe. My head was just running, and it's taken years for that to slow down and get space, that the thoughts are sort of cognitive, nice pace. I'm able to say an awful lot of the time I'm saying to myself, and actually sometimes I say it out loud, nobody cares. And I don't know what that wee mantra means to me, and I don't mean it in a detached, nobody cares about me, Calamero sort of thing. It's just, that's not an issue. You know, to the thought in my head of, but what if, ... nobody cares.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. I was away doing a radio interview there, and whatever it was that I said when I was driving over here, came into my head, and then I instantly thought, nobody cares. And it, you know, it was nothing controversial. I can't even remember what it was when I'm telling you that. But I was instantly like, dismiss. And I did not have that ability. So a lot of that seems to have been garnered not through intellectually understanding it, but through the fatigue of suffering from it. Has been like, no, I get, no this, because it's futile. The futility of the rumination, that realization has helped Disney prevent it from happening. But to have that information, as opposed to what you had said, which I completely get before, which was, I need to figure this out or it will not be okay. And then the figuring it out, it got worse and worse and worse. And something else you said there about it, a lot of that, pardon me paraphrasing, a lot of that being based in past the future projection being based on something in the past, whether I was aware of what it is or not. It was like, you know, like my bumper stickers, and one of them was, if it's hysterical, it's historical. So that there's information that's either in my memory, fresh in my memory, or buried somewhere that's telling me that if I don't have this sorted, it feels like it's a matter of life or death.
Yeah.
So there's also, I have quite a lot of a compassionate view of my poor wee head. Sometimes that in its hobbled way is trying to help me, because it thinks I'm going to die if it doesn't work out.
Yeah. No. I mean, and that's part of the reason that we continue to do a thing, because we've got a false idea that unless I, worry about this to the max, that it's going to happen or something like that. It doesn't. So each of us has got a unique, kind of reality about that. There were a couple of things you said there that, one is you talked about, it just gets too much, you get fed up with the thing, and the other, and that, that gift of despair, is definitely something that, that the system seems to respond to, in different ways. But the other, I don't think that's the only vector of change. I mean, and I'm wondering whether you can remember a time where not necessarily whatever was the most distress for you, but where you have felt a degree of emotional discomfort, and then you've noticed that you're just genuinely able to switch it on, not a front, but you're genuinely in a different space, in a different state of mind, maybe performing, maybe not, maybe just, with a friend.
Yeah, when you were talking about your version of that there, where you thought was going to ask you, and the next day you're staring at me, and then blah, blah, blah. Well, it was with you last week. Remember I sat and I was talking to you about the thing that I had in my head, and I was quite distressed. And then I had to go and DJ. And I don't know if I don't even have seen you since then, or I have seen you since then, but I've not told you since then. I had a great gig. See, as soon as I started to play that music, I went right into that music. I didn't play it, put a song on, and then think about the thing that I had been thinking about before it.
Yeah.
I was talking to the people that were there. And you see, before it, I was still a bit agitated, but as soon as that music started, I went into a different place.
Yeah.
And when I came away from it and I DJ'd for an hour, oh my God, thank my lucky stars that I'd had an hour's reprieve, because it kind of came back to me. But I had that space. I already knew, that observer in me, whatever that is, that higher wisdom, already knew that I didn't, of the futility of the rumination, but the rumination was still going, but not at the same level. So there was a prime example, and I was with you last week.
So, just to kind of delve into the three principles a little bit in relation to that. So to my mind, what's happening there is we can really only entertain one thing at a time. So when you're engaged in that DJing, you're just not engaged. So ruminating is not, last hour's ruminating does not have any weight until you pick up the next hour's ruminating. And when you're engaged in something, you're engaged in that thing, and you can't, and this is something that if we come back to an area you touched on earlier about the feeling that our body gives us a clue. So if I'm feeling whatever it is, some kind of tension in the body, it's a clue that I am not about what's happening in my life or what needs to change or who I need to speak to or anything like this. But it's a clue of what's the thinking I'm entertaining in this moment. What's the belief system that I'm entertaining in this moment? And I had that, yes. We continue. It's not been get out of this and never experience it again. I mean, I love that aspect of this work, the recognition that people go up and down in their state of mind. But it doesn't matter so much, and we don't go down to the same extent. And the clue is in the body, which and increasingly today for me, I can see that if I get that, the first order of business is, what do I need right now to, before I start solving the world, what do I need right now to kind of, calm and sometimes it just, sometimes something will happen that just distracts me. I don't even need to do anything, but whatever, it will pass. And, for me, part of it is not, taking it overly seriously, that this is never telling me about the world. This internal distress, internal tension, physical tension is never telling me about the world. It's telling me about how I am seeing the world in that moment. And that's a useful distancing thing for me, so it gives me, it brings me back to, a degree of agency, a good degree of possibility, the idea that it can be a fresh thought, there'll be another perspective. This wisdom will be along shortly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's taking a wee bit longer.
This is true.
And it's so interesting about how when you're talking about the body there and you're touching that, and I'm like, don't want to get too, the body knows the score or the body keeps the score, but my body knows the stuff. Like his information, as you say, in it. But what happens a lot of the time, and I think I had to do this as a kid, is I had to come out of my body. It was too much for me to. I needed guidance in it, and I'd already been told that what I was feeling was wrong. So it was awfully confusing. So then trying to work it out, and it's as if my head isn't part of my body. Do you know, if it wasn't, I wouldn't be having this conversation. But it's as if it goes into the storeroom. It's a way up into the attic, and when I have some release, I then get a headache. It's so interesting how, it's psychosomatic, but just somatic. All of that is. There was another thing I wanted to ask you on that though, Christian, about a phrase that I heard recently, and at the tender age of nearly 55, I think that
next week.
Seen it all. I've seen it all, I've heard it all, blah blah blah. And I know I haven't, of course, but it's always good when I hear something that's really new. And I'm probably paraphrasing it or simplifying it a bit for myself, but it was somebody said, if I know what's good for me and I don't do it, then I don't know what's good for me.
Oh, I like that.
I went, oh, yeah, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And that really gave me I felt it when you said that.
Yeah.
And it took my intellect a wee bit of time to catch up with the feeling, because the information was so useful that it almost, sometimes things hit me a bit like a rubber bullet, as opposed to, I've got it right in there, it's not right in the stomach. But I thought that says a lot. How can I work with that? Because I knew it was accurate. And does that?
That's totally in description in my world too. And and I suppose a really simple example would be, I've got a really sweet tooth. Now I know that sweet stuff does not do anything good for my body, my teeth, for anything. And yet, can I give it up? So why is that? Because there's another part of me that thinks the treat, in my mind, in my invention of the sweet stuff, is more significant than the health detriments, if you like. And and I'm open to seeing something new. And I used to feel like that about cigarettes, and then it's supported by lots of other false beliefs. Like when I was smoking, I thought, if I stop, I'm going to spend the rest of my life craving a fag. Now, nothing could be further from the truth, and it was relatively easy when I ultimately stopped. I mean, there were times when I wanted one and I didn't have one, but do you know what I mean? But you could say at the point where I was still smoking, although I absolutely 100% knew this is not good for your health in any way, shape or form. But some other part of me thought that giving it up would be more painful, more harmful, if you like, to my psyche or my state of mind than continuing.
Well, that's interesting because, and I share your sugar angst. And sometimes I'm in sugar angst and sometimes I'm in sugar paradise. I'm writing it up to my oaksters and I'm just doing it. And actually it's interesting at the moment when I say it's I'm not overdoing it, but I'm also feeling that even though I'm not overdoing it to the point that I would have overdone it in the past, I'm actually feeling detrimental effects of it. But I wonder if there's a part of my psyche and the bigger picture thinks, because I use it it soothes me. That's why
you believe it soothes you.
Well, it does something. It must do something for you.
Well, I believe it. Yes, I have the false belief that it soothes me, and this is, where. So while you have that, just as I had the false belief that the cigarette soothed me, but really what the cigarette did was it took away the craving, but set up the next craving, and soothing wasn't really in there at all. If I'm honest, and there's some so. I think what I'm trying to say here is we even through this understanding, as far as I am aware, we don't get complete control over our beliefs, but we can be so I can in the moment again I'm open to more wisdom. But I know I'm sort of stuck in that belief that giving up all sugar forever would be a terrible deprivation, which feels worse in my mind at the moment than recognizing that that it's not great for you.
And is it a kind of choose your battles?
Yeah, I think so.
Because I remember hearing somebody saying, I needed every drink and every fag and every cake I ever had. Is that true? Is it, because I don't drink, and then, and then I don't smoke, don't go with bad boys.
I'm looking for one.
Stop myself. And it's almost like ever decreasing circles of, whether it's soothing mechanisms or whatever it is that to reach out, distractions. And a wee bit of me is like, I can't be bothered.
Yeah,
with it because it's effort. I find
effort to resist or effort to do it.
Effort to stop.
Yeah,
it's more effort to stop than to keep going.
So this is the way I see it, how it working. So if I have. And part of the tension comes because there's a cognitive dissonance. Part of me knows let's stick with sugar. Sweets are not great for you. The other part of me thinks it's the ultimate treat. So that's instantly, and then as if I get a desire, a craving for one, when I take it, the craving dissolves. But it's because I've given myself, again, not at a conscious level, permission to stop craving. Craving being made of thought. So the whole thing is a thought-driven enterprise.
I don't doubt that.
And yet there's also a humility in that I can't. If I could just press a switch and take away all desire for sweet stuff, I would. That's not available to me. There's something about allowing myself to be kind of guided, to get the wisdom, to get the clarity, to reach that place, and also to be accepting of my humanness, to be accepting of when I'm caught up in my desires and my ego and everything else,
I know another bumper sticker recently, which I like them when they suit me, was, if it's spirituality isn't about, transcending your humanness, it's embracing it. And that is, I don't necessarily think that I was consciously trying to transcend anything, but I was shooting myself in the foot all the time because I was trying to get away from myself rather than embrace myself. And that feels like, that kind of learning things like compassionate inquiry. And when I say learning it, I don't even necessarily mean to do it. I mean that was an option.
Yeah.
Because I thought the only way to change things was to get yourself a doing. So I mean, I don't know, where am I? Where I picked that up for, Mama. And God love them, people are only past knowing what they think they know and what they think. So, but it was much more effective to have a compassionate view of why I did / do what I do, and an understanding, and that was part of the way to grow it, or maybe not need to. It's it could be either or bits of both. So, and that's been a long time coming. What a relief that. Why do we know no more of this in the world? I don't suppose it. It doesn't sell washing machines. It doesn't sell white goods. That kind of.
And yet, if you asked any parent, or what they would want for their kids, it's happiness. And it seems to me that this understanding is something that can really help people find more happiness in their lives. Happiness is already there. Karen, I'm conscious of time. I know that you have other engagements today, and I'm really, really grateful to you for coming along and being so generous with your time. Is there anything that you would like to add to kind of close us out today? And so that's always a bit of a difficult question.
Finish my
wrap it up.
Finish my Barbara Streisand number. You said something earlier that reminded me of the freedom that is in not knowing. And that before would have been a kind of hell for me, that not knowing. And I can still get trapped in that. But it was I like my films, and I was watching, we talked about it before, Conclave, and there was a line in that, and Ralph Fiennes was given the big sermon, and he said, but the biggest sin of all, and I leaned in, I went, oh, Ralph, ease it. You'll need this, will be a biggie. Oh, impressed me with this. The biggest sin of all. I went, what is it then? Come on, Ralph. He said, it's certainty. I went, oh, well done.
Excellent.
Well done. And it really stayed with me, that. I mean, I'd already had realizations and experiences of that, but that wee clip, I was like, thank you. Please remind me that the majority of the time that certainty is a trap for me, because there's no room for what is there? There's no room. It's just there's no room. There's that constriction that's in that I've found in my certainty of this is how it is and this is how it will be. And then that's been blown out the water. And not only has that left me in the middle of nowhere, but it's left me absolutely devastated as well. And I'll maybe not be able to protect myself as such from that, but maybe I'll be able to see it coming a wee bit sooner. I don't know. Anyway, but definitely leaving it there, because I can't beat Ralph Fiennes.
Brilliant. Listen, thank you so much, Can. I really, really appreciate it. I really, really appreciate you.
Absolutely, likewise. You're a dear friend.
Well, thank you. And I know you've got a lot going on, you know, listeners. I mean, I know you've got a show in the Comedy Festival, but I believe that's sold out. Is that the Citizens? There might be returns.
It might be. There's a few single tickets as well, which is a great position to be in.
So that's wonderful. And remind us of the date of that.
That's the 25th of March, and I'm on tour.
So that's going on all over Scotland, isn't it?
Yes, it'll be all coming to a hamlet near you.
And you're and some much bigger venues, and you're doing a bit of DJing here and there around the Glasgow area largely.
DJ daft. I've got to Ibiza to DJ for 2 bob and a pickled egg. That's what I'm getting paid, and I'm happily doing it just to be in the sun and playing music.
Brilliant.
Paradise.
And I know that you've got various BBC and other things in the offing that will be. So watch this space, folks.
There's a few plates spinning the new, and that was actually the problem. Luxury problems, but I had just a wee bit too many plates spinning. I could feel a couple of them crashing down, like on a variety show in the 1970s when the plates spin. One into one and one into the other one.
I'd forgotten of the days when that was considered entertainment.
The summertime special, live at Bournemouth.
Listen, thank you so much, Karen. Thanks again. Absolutely wonderful.
Thanks, Christian. My pleasure.
Thank you, everyone, for listening.